What if I told you wealth isn't a privilege? It's your birthright. That success isn't random and being rich is a decision backed by principles as predictable as gravity? Today, we unlock the mental blueprint of the wealthy, the focused, and the unstoppable. This isn't just another podcast. This is your front row seat to a financial awakening sparked by the timeless truths in Your Right to Be Rich by Napoleon Hill. Inside this episode, you'll discover how the world's most powerful minds think, act, and attract abundance, and more importantly, how you can do the same. But we're going further than just knowledge. At the end, you'll face a knowledge check, designed to burn these principles into your mind and give you a tangible boost in mental strength and decision-making clarity. And yes, there's a powerful surprise waiting if you stay until the end. Ready to reclaim your right to wealth, purpose, and mental mastery? Let's begin.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're stepping back a bit, to 1954 actually.
Right, we're digging into some really thought-provoking lectures by Napoleon Hill.
Exactly, and it's not just about, getting rich in the monetary sense.
No, he talks about this right to be rich, but it sounds much broader, like overall fulfillment, right?
Spot on. We've got transcripts from those original lectures, so it's straight from the source.
Our mission then is to sort of unpack these principles, see what they really mean, and, well, if they still hit home today for you.
Yeah, definitely. What's amazing is even after, nearly 70 years, his focus on controlling your mind, shaping your attitude, it feels incredibly relevant.
Totally. We're not just, dusting off old ideas here.
Yeah.
These are fundamental approaches to achieving what you want, whatever that looks like for you.
Absolutely. And he kicks things off with something foundational, definiteness of purpose.
Okay, yeah. Let's unpack that, because it's clearly more than just, having a vague wish.
Right. He insists on a really clear, defined purpose. But, and this is key, it needs a solid plan and actual decisive action.
It's like knowing your destination, but you also need the map, and crucially, you need to actually start driving.
Makes sense. And here's a really practical point he makes.
Yeah.
While the purpose itself needs to be solid, unwavering, the plan, that needs to be flexible.
Oh, definitely. Life throws curveballs, right? You've got to be able to adapt your strategy.
Hill basically says if plan A doesn't work, find another way. Simple as that, almost.
It's so relevant today. Things change so fast.
He even uses this great analogy about nature, how it gives us tools.
And rewards us for using them.
But if we let those tools sit idle, especially our minds, they just kind of wither.
Atrophy. And then you become easily influenced, like he says, like a ship without a rudder.
That idea of mental idleness making you susceptible?
Yeah.
That's powerful. If you're not actively engaging, thinking critically,
You're just more easily swayed by whatever's going on around you, external pressures, other people's opinions.
Okay, so you've got this clear purpose. What powers it? What's the fuel?
For Hill, pure enthusiasm.
Right. He argues that expressing yourself with real, genuine enthusiasm actually sparks your belief, gets your subconscious working on it.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The story behind the title, Think and Grow Rich.
Oh yeah, tell us about that. It wasn't the original title, was it?
No, not at all. It was something much more, well, straightforward. The 13 Steps to Riches. Kind of dry, maybe.
Definitely less catchy.
Right. But Hill felt it was missing something vital. He describes this intense late-night session, almost wrestling with his subconscious to find $1 million title.
Wow. Not just casual brainstorming then.
No, he talks about this deep, almost physical feeling of faith taking over when the right title hit him. It really shows how much he believed in tapping into that inner mind.
It makes you wonder, have you ever had that kind of gut feeling that knowing an idea is right?
It's that sudden clarity moment. And speaking of clarity, especially in the early stages of a goal, Hill has this interesting view on privacy.
Right. Keep your major purpose quiet, at least at first. Why the secrecy?
Well, Hill's thinking was about protection. Protecting those fragile early dreams from negativity.
Negativity from who?
He calls them idle, curious people. He worried that sharing your biggest goals too soon could invite envy, maybe even sabotage, people poking holes in your plans.
That's quite a warning, isn't it? About the power of other people's opinions.
Yeah, he suggests letting your actions, your results, do the talking. Build it first, then show it off.
Makes sense. And this ties right into his idea that your definite major purpose should be, well, your life purpose.
Exactly. Not just some temporary goal, but the main thing you feel driven to achieve. The legacy you want to leave.
It really pushes you to ask, what's that core driver for you?
He puts it pretty bluntly, too. Without that kind of big, overarching purpose, life can feel wasted, spent on trivial things.
He believed we all come here with this potential, this capacity within our minds to fulfill a unique destiny.
So if we don't tap into that, it's a missed opportunity, in his view. What is that big picture for you? What achievement would feel like fulfilling your purpose?
Heavy questions. Now, let's shift gears slightly. He also gets practical about relationships, mending strained ones.
Right. And his approach is surprisingly simple, but maybe not easy. Basically, consciously recommit to interacting better.
And the specific advice, a little bit of honest self-reflection.
Exactly. Maybe even admitting your own part in the problem. He suggests acknowledging your imperfections can actually encourage the other person to do the same.
Interesting. Creating space for harmony by taking the first step.
It puts the responsibility on you to initiate that change. He really believed most relationship problems stem from simple neglect.
Just not putting in the effort. A good reminder that relationships need constant tending, like a garden.
And this proactive mindset, it applies beyond personal stuff, too. He tells this amazing story about working with Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Yes, during a critical economic time, right? The Depression.
Exactly. He talks about developing what he called a propaganda plan. Now, we need to remember the context of the word back then.
Sure, it didn't always have the negative spin it does now.
Right. It was about a deliberate strategy to shift public perception, to move the narrative from business depression to business recovery.
It just shows the incredible power of framing, the language we use, the mindset we adopt.
Absolutely. Think about today how much the stories we tell ourselves collectively influence belief and action. Changing the conversation can change reality.
Which leads us nicely into another huge Hill concept, the mastermind principle.
Ah, yes, the power of collaboration. He saw the American free enterprise system itself as an example of this principle at work, fueling motivation.
But he also noted something interesting happening in business back then.
Which was?
Businesses were starting to see the value of extending the mastermind idea beyond just basic cooperation. They were looking at sharing management, even profits.
Creating a truly invested team where everyone benefits from success. Makes sense.
He shares this sweet little story, too, about a student from way back in 1928.
Yeah.
She made a point of just staying in touch with him over the years. And eventually that connection led to real business benefits for her.
It really drives home the long-term value of nurturing those mastermind alliances. It's not just about networking for immediate gain.
No, it's about building genuine, supportive relationships that can pay off in unexpected ways down the line.
Exactly. It's about that mutual support over time.
Okay, now, brace yourself for a really powerful, quite moving story he shares about adversity.
This one's personal.
Very. It's about his son, who was born without physical ears.
And Hill's approach was, well, unconventional for the time, surely.
Definitely. From day one, he consciously taught his son that this wasn't a disadvantage, but actually a unique advantage. A blessing, he called it.
That positive framing, the impact was incredible, wasn't it?
Absolutely. His son went on to live a full, normal life, became a successful salesman even. It's just a stunning example of how perspective shapes reality.
It really makes you think about how you frame your own challenges, doesn't it?
And this experience led Hill to research other successful people. He found this pattern.
That the greatest achievers often face the biggest obstacles.
Exactly. Greatness often seemed proportional to the adversity overcome. He even suggested that sharing our own stories of failure and resilience can inspire others.
So adversity isn't a dead end. It's potentially a catalyst for growth. It flips the script.
Totally. It encourages you to look back at your own struggles and see how they might have actually shaped you for the better.
Okay, next principle, going the extra mile.
Right. He starts with nature again. Survival often demands that extra push.
And he applies that directly to work. Want a promotion, more pay, you generally need to consistently do more than what's strictly required.
It's about creating value beyond the job description, proactively going above and beyond.
Hill even suggests this creates a kind of obligation, or maybe goodwill, like building up credit with people.
And instead of focusing on what others aren't doing, he says, focus on your own improvement. He uses his own life, dedicated to teaching his philosophy, as an example.
And he makes it practical. Try to do one small extra mile thing each day, even just a helpful phone call.
Those small, consistent hacks add up. They build momentum, shape who you become. It's about a habit of contribution.
Next up, Flexibility as a strength.
Crucial. The ability to adapt to life's changes without getting crushed by them.
He points to FDR again, saw his adaptability as key to his popularity.
Contrasting him with leaders who are maybe more rigid, that inflexibility can really hold you back, even if you're talented.
And the key takeaway, flexibility isn't fixed. It's a skill you can learn, you can develop.
And it's not just about navigating the outside world. He links flexibility to inner peace, even good health, rolling with the punches.
Right. It shows how interconnected it all is, mental, emotional, physical well-being tied to our ability to adapt.
Now for something seemingly small but huge. Tact.
Yes.
Yeah,
You don't need to say everything you think.
exactly. Tact in speech, in attitude. It's always an option.
The car accident example is funny, but so true.
Right. How easily a minor fender bender blows up because someone had to say something sharp.
He paints this picture of drivers getting out, both immediately apologizing, taking the blame.
It's comical, but it highlights how easily conflict can be diffused, just choosing words carefully.
Simple but profound. Consideration prevents so much unnecessary friction.
Building on that, he talks about humility. Genuine humility.
Sees it as a really valuable trait, even when he had to criticize someone.
He'd silently remind himself, hey, I make mistakes too.
Exactly. It fosters empathy. He knew his success depended on cooperation, and cooperation needs friendliness, respect.
For personal growth, Hill pushes for regular self-assessment, actually grading yourself.
On things like initiative, leadership, using your definite purpose as the benchmark.
And if defining a lifelong purpose feels too big right now,
Start smaller. Focus on the next year. And crucially, don't set the bar impossibly high at first. Incremental growth.
another big one for clear thinking. Avoiding intolerance.
And he means intolerance broadly, right? Not just religion or politics.
Yeah, it can creep into almost any relationship or interaction.
He argues that a truly open mind is essential for sharp thinking, for having a magnetic personality, just for being liked.
Closed-mindedness, he says, basically makes your words useless. They just bounce off.
It's about being genuinely receptive to new ideas, different views, even if they challenge you, recognizing you don't have all the answers.
Because you could have the most brilliant idea.
But if the other person's mind is slammed shut, it's going nowhere.
Then we circle back to doing more than expected. He hammers this point home.
Requires personal initiative, but it pays off. Nobody demands it.
But it's how you demonstrate drive, create opportunities, consistently exceed the basics.
And the flip side of initiative, taking responsibility.
Absolutely, no excuses. Hill's very firm on this.
He argues that the energy spent making excuses is completely wasted. Better used actually doing the thing.
He even makes this sharp point. Often, the cleverer the excuse maker.
The less effective they actually are. It's a counterproductive habit.
He also talks about environment,
Mm.
recognizing its impact on our mindset.
Right. The R.J. Letourneau company example, using positive mottos.
Even if the interpretation sometimes went awry, like in his anecdote.
The principle holds. Consciously shape the mental climate around you.
Okay, now for a concept that's maybe a bit more out there.
The invisible guides.
Yeah, creating this sort of army in your imagination to help you achieve things.
He fully acknowledges they're imaginary, products of your own mind.
But he claims they're practically effective. He gives an example of visualizing a guide specifically for maintaining good physical health.
So not literal spirits, but a technique, like focus visualization, personifying goals or qualities.
That seems to be the idea. A tool for focusing intention, reinforcing positive self-talk.
Interesting. And speaking of health,
Foundational. Absolutely essential. Sound physical health is the bedrock for mental effort.
you need that physical energy to fuel enthusiasm, to sustain focus. It's all connected.
Reflecting on the successful people he knew, Hill found true peace of mind alongside success was, well, rare.
He mentions John Burroughs. Maybe Edison came close.
Interestingly, Andrew Carnegie in his later years became really focused on distributing his wealth responsibly.
And on making sure Hill's philosophy got out there. He saw success as more than just money. It was about impact, legacy.
Yeah, Carnegie even regretted not seeing it fully written down before he passed.
So given life's challenges, Hill says you need a system, a way to resist negativity, maintain hope, faith.
He suggests his own 8 guides could be one such system. It's about proactively building mental resilience.
Having actual strategies to counter negative thoughts and pressures.
Then there's this really memorable part, his personal philosophy on dealing with hardship.
Choosing to laugh at adversity.
Exactly. Consciously deciding not to take it all too seriously. Choosing laughter over pain, turning defeat into a lesson, even seeing death as peaceful sleep.
It's such a powerful declaration of mental independence. Your ability to think freely, to choose your perspective that can't be stolen. Laughter as the ultimate defense.
And this ties into self-discipline. Lashing out when harmed. That's a lack of discipline, he says. It diminishes you.
True strength comes from within, focusing on your own growth, not getting dragged down, maintaining internal balance.
He also warns, be careful what you obsess over. Your subconscious works to bring it about.
So make sure it's something you actually want. And self-discipline, enthusiasm, they're built gradually, through habit. Act enthusiastic to become enthusiastic.
Right. Consciously cultivate the habits that support your long-term goals.
He really hammers this point about choosing your desires carefully. Make sure what you crave now is something you'll still want down the road. Uses marriage as a sort of humorous warning.
It's a call for thoughtful consideration before pouring energy into something. Does it align with your future self, your values?
Through self-discipline, Hill aimed for balance, reacting positively to life's unpleasantness. He even muses on how he'd react to aggression.
And concludes, given time to think, pity would be more likely than hatred.
Shows the power of conscious choice and emotional response. Discipline creates space for reasoned reaction.
For practical steps, he suggests listing 5 personal traits needing improvement via self-discipline.
Acknowledging it's hard. We're biased towards ourselves.
Then the contrast. List traits needing improvement in others. Much easier, right?
Oh, yes. It highlights how easily we see flaws elsewhere. A nudge to turn that critical eye inward.
When conflict is unavoidable, choose your battles. Resolve not to intentionally harm, but firmly defend your rights.
That mindset, he believes, makes victory more likely. It's strength and self-respect, defending boundaries, not attacking.
How does he define self-discipline? Complete mastery over mind and body.
Not necessarily changing them fundamentally, but controlling them. He uses the powerful emotion of sex as an example needs direction, not suppression.
It's about channeling energy, being the driver, not driven by impulse.
And developing daily habits, focusing the mind on desired outcomes, resisting unwanted ones without getting consumed by the resistance.
It's built through those small, consistent daily choices, cultivating the right mental pathways. Circling back to enthusiasm again, he says it stems directly from a burning desire.
Right. If you cultivate that deep desire, you almost don't need instructions on how to be enthusiastic.
That intense motivation becomes the natural engine. It just flows.
And that strong desire, it sharpens your thinking, sparks your imagination for solutions, brightens your outlook, makes you alert to opportunities.
Enthusiasm acts like a catalyst, unlocking mental resources, opening your eyes.
And genuine enthusiasm, the kind that connects. It comes from sincerely believing what you say and truly wanting to benefit others. Authenticity is everything. When words match conviction, when your motive is positive, it's contagious.
He even suggests practicing it. Consciously adjust your tone in daily conversations. Inject positivity. Make people feel good.
But wisely, he adds. Maybe avoid enthusiastic reprimands.
Good point. It's about bringing positive energy appropriately, using your voice to uplift.
Regarding emotions like love or dealing with loss, feel them deeply, yes. But self-control is vital to prevent destruction.
How do you adjust to unpleasantness then? Shift focus. Consciously direct attention to the positive. Fuel that with enthusiasm.
It's about emotional regulation, taking charge of where your mental energy goes.
And he states clearly, improving how you express enthusiasm. That's your responsibility.
It's a skill. Needs practice, refinement, ongoing attention.
He also highlights the immense value of a supportive, mastermind-like relationship with a life partner.
Principle, but in that intimate context.
He shares a personal story, too, about focusing intensely on wanting a specific goal, a 1,000-acre estate.
And how that focused desire seemed to attract the opportunities to make it happen.
Illustrates that magnetic power of focused intention, drawing resources and circumstances toward your goal.
He gives other examples. William Wrigley and his 5-cent gum empire. The Founding Fathers and their world-changing focus on liberty.
Hill saw his own philosophy as aiming for a kind of freedom, too. These examples show the power of sustained, unwavering concentration.
Now, shifting to thinking itself, he warns strongly against forming opinions on flimsy evidence.
Right, don't just rely on newspaper headlines or hearsay. Unreliable sources lead to unreliable conclusions.
That phrase, I see by the papers, he saw it as a red flag for snap judgments, lack of critical thinking.
Be discerning consumers of information and distinguish between wishes and facts.
Our desires can really cloud our judgment, can't they? Need rigorous self-awareness. Question your own biases, especially towards people or ideas you like.
And that counterintuitive idea, the person who irritates you, they might be doing you a favor by forcing self-examination.
Push past the irritation, maybe. Look for the underlying assumption they're challenging.
He urges us.
Yeah.
Seek facts. Understand their source. Ask, how do you know? Evaluate the basis of knowledge. Use logic when facts are scarce.
Evidence-based thinking, sound reasoning, essential navigation tools.
He gives us specific questions for evaluating sources, too.
Like, what are the author's qualifications? Their opportunity for accuracy.
Is the info presented objectively? Do they have a motive, a bias, profit, agenda?
Is the writer known for sound judgment? Or are they prone to being, well, a fanatic? Understanding motive reveals bias.
These are such crucial filters for the information overload we face daily.
Then he lists the enemies of sound thinking, mostly our own emotions.
Surprisingly, maybe, love is at the top. Its power to cloud judgment.
Then the usual suspects. Hatred, anger, jealousy, fear, greed, vanity, egotism.
The desire for something for nothing. Procrastination. All things to guard against, especially during big decisions.
He reminds us, we were given control over our minds. It's sufficient for our needs. Learn to use it. Direct it.
He touches on inherited thinking habits too, social and physical.
Physical heredity is largely fixed, but social habits, thinking patterns, those can be changed with effort.
That gives you agency, doesn't it? You can cultivate new, better mental habits.
Where to start developing accurate thinking? Examine your emotions. With reason.
And prioritize examining the things you enjoy most. Do they truly align with your long-term goals and desires?
Ensure your passions serve your ultimate purpose and well-being.
Revisiting adversity again. Challenges, defeats, failures, probably intended for growth.
He credits his own early hardships for enabling him to develop his philosophy. They were tough teachers, but effective ones.
Building resilience, wisdom, deeper understanding.
And while unfavorable heredity could cause failure,
It can also be a catalyst for success. Many successful people overcame huge disadvantages. Shows the power of the human spirit.
he distinguishes essential curiosity vital for learning from meddlesome curiosity.
Right, poking into other people's affairs. That needs control. Direct curiosity towards your own growth.
A potentially major cause of failure, he mentions. Poor choice of spouse.
And if you've made that mistake, actively look for ways to correct the situation. Highlights the huge impact of close relationships.
Lack of concentration gets another mention. Divide interests, dilute focus, hinder success.
Focus on one thing. See it through. Simple advice, hard to follow sometimes.
Failure to budget money, not controlling finances. Overspending on credit. Very common pitfalls. Financial discipline is fundamental.
He also warns against unearned riches. Power or wealth not based on merit can be a trap.
True success is built on earned achievement, providing real value.
Lack of loyalty to those who deserve it. Another failure point. Practice loyalty.
And he suggests, if you score low on any of these points in a self-check, go back, study that area.
Honest confession of faults, where appropriate, not to everyone, is good for growth. Understand needs versus rights.
Self-awareness, admitting mistakes vital.
He talks about conscience, that innate guide to right and wrong.
Being in tune with it, responding to it, leads to a more fortunate life. If it wavers, that's a signal something needs work.
It's your moral compass, guides actions, shapes character.
On cooperation, future benefits motivate it. But it needs harmony, shared direction.
Forced cooperation breeds resentment. And understand others' motives to avoid being misled. True collaboration needs shared goals, mutual benefit.
A good leader empowers others, encourages them to make decisions, take responsibility for outcomes.
Like that great story with Iris Curtis refusing to make the decision for Edward Bach, made him own it.
Fosters autonomy, accountability, capability in others.
And finally, creative vision, imagination, the source of civilization's benefits.
He uses 2001, A Space Odyssey, its sheer visionary scope as an example. Bridging time, creating new realities.
Imagination fueled by emotion, enthusiasm, faith. That's the starting point for all progress.
He distinguishes synthetic imagination combining existing ideas, like Edison's light bulb.
Right, not new elements, but a new combination. Electricity, filament.
From the role of the subconscious. Edison's breakthrough came during a catnap, after thousands of conscious failures, shows the interplay.
He circles back one last time. Collaboration, the mastermind principle, makes the impossible possible.
His alliance with Carnegie was crucial for his own work. Overcoming logical reasons to quit. It multiplies creativity, resilience,
He wraps up with some practical health tips. Eat in moderation.
control alcohol, cigarettes. Excess is harmful. Moderation might work, but avoidance is best for mental control. He shares a story about skipping drinks before speaking.
Maintain well-being for peak performance. Then he asks us to reflect.
How do you use your time, your money, finite resources?
How much is wasted? Where does it go? Honest answers are the first step to better management, maximizing contribution.
Conscious allocation is key to impact and fulfillment.
Then the law of cosmic habit force. Make positive thinking a dominant habit.
It starts to influence circumstances. A negative mind blocks positive outcomes. Avoid negativity thoughts, words, relationships. Cultivate positive habits. Let them take over.
Creates that upward spiral, attracting positive experiences.
And finally, a list of negative fixations to avoid if you're embracing this philosophy.
Things like poverty consciousness, imaginary illness, laziness, often a sign of unfulfilling work, he thought.
Envy, greed, anger, hatred, jealousy, dishonesty, aimlessness, irritability, vanity, arrogance, cynicism, even sadism or wanting to injure others.
These are just too costly, he says. They drain energy, hinder progress. Consciously overcome them. So that brings us to the end of this deep dive into Napoleon Hill's 1954 lectures. Wow, quite a journey.
It really is. We've covered so much ground: definiteness of purpose, enthusiasm, privacy, learning from adversity.
The extra mile, self-discipline, accurate thinking, a whole framework.
And even though it's from, the 50s, these core ideas about actively shaping your success and fulfillment, they still feel incredibly relevant.
Absolutely. So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, which principles really jumped out at you? Where ones resonated most right now?
Yeah, where might you consciously apply some of these ideas to get more clarity, maybe more motivation, or just build that resilience we all need?
It's definitely rich material.
Yeah.
Worth revisiting, mulling over. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. Hill was adamant that your mind, when you direct it properly, when you discipline it, is sufficient for all your needs in this life.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. So what might become possible for you if you really leaned into that power, the power of your own thinking? If you actively cultivated these habits he outlined.
That's definitely something to think about long after this deep dive ends.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us today.
Let this sink in. You've just absorbed the principles that have built empires, shaped millionaires, and unlocked destinies. But here's the brutal truth. If you don't apply it, it dies. Your right to be rich is more than a title. It's a call to rise, to claim what's already yours. But millions will ignore it and remain trapped, will you? Those who don't act on this knowledge risk falling into mediocrity while others pass them by. That's why your next steps matter now more than ever. Subscribe to this channel, where breakthroughs are born, not buried. Smash that like button to solidify your commitment to growth. Tap into exclusive tools and strategies in the links below. And prepare to join our community of relentless high achievers. We don't just talk success here, we train for it. Our expert panel is now going deep into the core mechanics of wealth and mindset that Napoleon Hill masterfully laid out. But before that, there's one final gate, the knowledge check. Not for the curious, but for the committed. Answer these questions and prove to yourself that you're not just inspired, you're transformed. Because those who master this test, they don't just learn to be rich, they become it.